Hello everyone, Anya here, and I am at, let me get this working. I am at the GaymerX East convention going on right now here in Times Square, New York City. This is the East Coast version of the Gaymer X conference, which is a video gaming conference for the LGBTQIA and or queer community. So this is the second day that I've been here. I went yesterday where I got to see a few panels, and today I am back to do my shopping and to see a few more panels and to just play some games. So I'm going to try to get some coverage of this so you can experience this convention with me, and then later on when I'm home I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the cool games that I played. So let's go see the convention. So, GaymerX is over, and I am here to give you my review of my experience at this convention. Now, when I say convention, I think going into this, I was thinking it was going to be more like a larger scale convention that I've gone to, such as like PAX or Gen Con or even New York Comic Con. This was, I would say, more of like a conference. In the sense that it was small. It was held at the Microsoft Technology office in Times Square, which was a very beautiful office building with huge windows that allowed you to look out over Times Square. It wasn't like a huge scale thing. The panels were being held in conference rooms. Kitty, stop it. Like, there was a very, very small marketplace of indie vendors, and it was like one conference room. Even smaller, maybe. There was a little independent arcade or an indie arcade for video games that was also really small and kind of tiny. And I think just in general, I didn't know... And I think in general, I just didn't know how small this was in regards to how big I was thinking it was going to be compared to other large conventions that I had gone to. That's not to say that this made it bad at all. This is actually a really great experience for me. Going to this convention, I'm so sorry, all my cats are knocking they've now decided this is the time that they want to knock everything over. Anyway, will you stop it? Meow. Being a little nuisance. Okay. I had a wonderful experience at this conference. I got to go to several panels. I had a really great time in the marketplace just talking individually one-on-one with people. I got to meet up with some old friends there, and I played a lot of games. Now, normally when I go to conventions, I feel so overwhelmed with how much there is. There'll be like huge companies promoting their upcoming things and huge playtest areas, and I feel like it often actually takes away from the experience because there's just so much going on that I personally become really overwhelmed. being able to go to this conference with a very small indie arcade that felt more intimate and one-on-one was actually very refreshing. I could get around the whole room. As a person who's a completionist, it was a lot more refreshing because I was able to make it through the entire room and play all of the games that I wanted to try out. Unlike going to a larger convention where I don't think I would have been able to do that in 2 days. Another thing that was really important about this for me was that this was a gamer conference. So this was a convention that was geared specifically towards the queer community. You got this instantly. Upon walking in, I had to say my name to get my badge, but then I was given a card that I could write any name on, which is super important for people who maybe are trans or gender non-conforming and their name might not match what's on their identification. Also, when you got your badge, upon entering, they had a bunch of pronoun ribbons that you that you had to attach to the bottom of it. Basically what this meant is that if you're a person where maybe your gender doesn't match your presentation or you're fluid or changing with every day, you could go in there and get something different. And it wasn't a situation where you have to feel like you were going out of your way to be able to do this. It was just, requirements sound strict, but that's what it was. You went in there, you said your name, you filled out your badge, wrote what name you wanted to be called on it, and were given a tag with your pronouns that you asked for. It's really simple, and I wish more conventions would do things like that, especially smaller conferences like this where you're speaking to people one-on-one. It was really easy to just be able to look down and know, okay, that person goes by they, them, or that person goes by he, or that person goes by she pronouns. Super easy, and I wish more places would do this. And I know I kind of briefly talked about it before, but I did want to mention that this conference was being held in a very beautiful building. I don't drink coffee or tea really, but they had complimentary coffee and tea stations, so if you were there early, you could get it. Getting into the building was super easy and secure. Even though it was Times Square, it was more of a corner of Times Square, so you didn't get as much of that kind of pomp and circumstance and crowding as you would get normally with something. Really with any convention. This one just felt really mellow, which was very refreshing. The space itself was gorgeous. It had lots of little alcoves where you could just sit down. For somebody who is more introverted as myself, I could just sit by myself for a really long time and quietly, you know, go over the schedule or read or just kind of recharge myself in privacy. But they also had larger areas where you could sit and talk to other people. They had lots of different rooms where they had a gaming library and things like that. So if you just wanted to kind of privately sit down and play with friends, you could do that. If you wanted to sit by yourself for a while, you could do that. If you wanted to have a big social area, you could do that as well. It was a convention, or I keep saying convention, but like I said, it was more of a conference where it really offered so many different levels of comfort for so many people, and I really loved that about it. So now that I've gone over generally how I felt about this conference, let's talk about the individual aspects of it. The marketplace was much smaller than I had expected. A lot of queer community is based around kind of entrepreneurial and creating your own stuff and things like that, and I kind of expected a larger marketplace, but I can't fault a conference on that because that comes to the vendors and their decisions to join. But I do hope in the future there will be bigger marketplaces. Most of the stuff that was there was t-shirts, jewelry, perler bead, little 8-bit things, and a lot of art. That'd be the main one. They also, I will say, both in the marketplace area and in the hallways, there was some great little companies or like nonprofits that were doing stuff. Like Lambda Legal was there, Geeks Out was there, Any Key was there. So there was a lot of places that you could also just go and get information as a queer person on better ways to maneuver amidst the world and the gaming community. I kind of went around and I found a few things that I wanted to get, some that I will be using for upcoming shows, some for my own personal interest. But back to the shopping. The first thing I bought was a pack of stickers from the artist Nuri Fury. And I will put their information below. This was an artist who just made fan art, but there was really cute Steven Universe stickers. And I had to go get them. They're located in New Jersey, so they're local for New York people. But the stickers were so cute. So you had all the different characters. This was a pack where if you bought 5... Ooh. If you bought 5, you got the 6th for free. So I was able to get a complete set. It's a great thing for a nerd like myself. The other thing that I bought was 2 pairs of pins and a sticker from the artist Sam Draws a Lot. This was an amazing seller that was selling super cute little art. So I ended up buying a sticker that I can't show you now because it's on the back of my computer, which is what I'm recording off of. But they did also sell really cute pins. So I got this little May pin. Ooh, let me get it. Focus. There we go. And I got 2 more pins because there was a deal if you bought 3. It's on my Ito bag, so hopefully you can see through it. I got this Mercy pin and this cute little Amanda pin from the game Dream Daddy. And then I also bought this really adorable Steve from Stranger Things sticker, which is the one that's on the back of my computer, which I will put a picture of right here so you can see it. I love it so much. But that was basically all I really bought in the marketplace. That's not to say that there weren't a bunch of other great things there. I was just on a budget, but like I said, I hope that in the future they open it up and have a whole lot more stuff, because there was already a lot of cute things, but I feel like there's a lot of places where they could have expanded and had more things to sell, because nerds love to buy stuff. Yes, we do. So let's talk about the Indie Arcade. Now, this was like a conference room where different gaming companies had set up little demos of their different games. They were also running demos of these, especially some of the card or tabletop games, were set up for different times where you could go and play it with the creators and learn as a general big group, or you could just kind of walk around and play a lot of the video games separately. 5 different games that I really enjoyed while I was playing there, so let's talk about each of them. First one that I really enjoyed was this one, which was called, I want to say it was Lolita Pinball. Was a really adorable game, which basically you play 2 girls who are going to go ask out a 3rd girl at this Lolita coffee shop. Super kawaii, yeah. But then it was pinball. So it was basically a pinball machine where you would hit the pinball and it would like hit pastries that were in a case, or it would buy you different things off of a cart, or it would get you like a coffee and things like that. There was like a super little mini game where you had to bake pastries by hitting different ingredients on the pinball machine. This game was still in development, so I'm going to put the information below, and then hopefully when it's live you'll be able to purchase it and play it on your own. So I wasn't able to play it all the way through because it got caught on a little bit of a glitch, but it was so cute and so 8-bit, and it was so, it says, so Claire Barton was the game designer, and it says makes cute girl games for cute girls. So as a cute girl, I loved this game. Now, the next game that I really liked was also a video game. It was called Exposure, a game of camouflage. This is a game that was put out by The Sheep's Meow. It's currently available on Steam and Xbox One. And this was a bit of kind of like an artsy Sorry, my cats really like plastic bags right now. Anyway, basically you play this little kind of round creature and you're moving around the space. If you eat these little things, it allows you to change color, and then there's kind of like an abstract bird thing that will attack you, and if you get attacked, you die. The idea is to become more and more adaptable. Seriously, guys? I never knew we had so many plastic bags in this apartment. So it was just a really fun, it was a very hard game. I will also say that while playing, I think the longest I got before I died, it was like 3 minutes. So this would be a really fun one that you could kind of play with friends if you're sitting around and people are taking turns, or you could just sit and really, you know, crank out like 4 hours of play just trying to get better. The thing that I really loved about it though was that the art was just very beautiful. With each kind of round it got more and more complex and the designs would get more complicated, and it was just visually very beautiful. The next game that I got to play that I really enjoyed was called The Ultimate Clapback. This was a card game similar to like your Apples and Apples or Cards Against Humanity, where basically you have a handful of clapbacks and you take your turn, you flip over a thing, and you insult somebody else at the table, and using the cards in their hand, they give you a clap back, and the person who gave the initial insult chooses whether or not, or the two of you choose who you think gave the better kind of insults. And if you can't agree upon it yourselves, then the rest of the table gets to vote who they think did the better one. This would just be kind of like a fun one to play with your friends. I played it with complete strangers, and it was still pretty enjoyable because there was a lot of different options that you could do. But I could definitely see it as a really fun party game to play amongst your friends. If you don't like the horribly debasing aspects of Cards Against Humanity, but you want something a little bit spicier than regular Apples to Apples. The next game that I really enjoyed was called ASD, which was short for Autism Spectrum Disorder. This was a very simple game, pixelated. I'm gonna take this kitten off me because she's, oh, you're falling. It was a very simplistic game, but a very, very difficult game. Basically what it is that you play a person with an autism spectrum disorder, and your days, it gives a little bit of information about it, where it says, you know, people who have this disorder often have problems when their days are disrupted, or they need stimulation, or talking to people can be extremely draining. And the game starts with you're on your subway going to class, and there's construction, and the subway lets out, and you have to walk 8 blocks to get to your class. Each frame you have to travel across, but there's going to be all kinds of different distractions. There's people that are catcalling you, there's people that are walking in your way, there's a coffee shop that you can go into to revive yourself, and basically what it is you have like a power bar at the top, and the more time you spend, the more kind of basically ability to function, or like your spoons, if you know spoon theory, depletes very quickly. Now you can walk around and there's things you can pick up, such as like hair ties or like pipe cleaners, that the tactile sensation can kind of revive you. As I said a little bit earlier, you can go into a coffee shop and get a coffee and do that, but there will also be these distractions that will come up, like you'll get a text message and you have to decide whether or not to read the text message, knowing that what's on there could really upset you and deplete your energy and things like that. It was really, really hard, and I did get to speak with the creator who was sitting behind it while I was playing it, and they explained that it was a very autobiographical game about how it is for them when they are trying to maneuver the world. So I would say check this one out, and I feel like this is a great, I don't think it's like edutainment per se, but this is definitely a game that I could see being very educational for children who don't know what it's like to have something on the autism spectrum, or for children who are on the autism spectrum to be able to play it and understand just the daily struggle that it can be sometimes maneuvering a world with autism spectrum disorder. And the last game that I wanted to talk about was a game called Consentical. Now this was a game that was funded on Kickstarter, so they're currently in the development of making it. You can still buy it online, and I'll put that link below. But this was a 2-person game that was very fun. Now this is definitely an X-rated game, So, or an R-rated game, I guess you could say. Where what it is you and another player. One of you is playing a human, one of you is playing an alien, and through communication, you flirt and fool around and have sex with this person. With these action cards that you play, you put trust, a little trust token into the middle, and if the other person has a trust token, you can play things where you connect and then you get satisfaction that then goes to one person or the other. Kind of the goal of the game is to get as much satisfaction as possible via consent and acts that you both enjoy. Playing different cards will have different effects than if you both play the same card. Say you both touch at the same time, that will have a different effect than if one of you does touch and one of you does bite, etc. You can play it on several different levels. So when I played it, since I was playing against a person I didn't know at the time, who I do now know, and it was wonderful to play with them, we played by just talking it out. So I'd be like, oh, I have touch, do you have touch? Cool, we'll both play touch at the same time, so we were able to play. The next level of doing it is you can only do it via charades. So, you know, if you wanted to bite, you'd maybe like make a little biting motion and they would know kind of what to play. And then the next level you can do is where you can't do any talking or moving, and it's basically just all through eye contact. So this is a game that you can play with a stranger if you feel up to the fact that it's a little bit more adult in nature, or you can play it with a friend and have like kind of a fun flirty game like that, or you can play it with somebody that you know very personally who you think you could try it to that third level of difficulty where you're not talking and you're just doing an entire game via eye contact. But I am so excited to purchase this game because the art is absolutely gorgeous, and I mean, look at this graphic. Huh. Beautiful. So nice. And it was just really fun, and the tokens were cute, and I had a great time getting to play this one. So definitely check that one out. Over the weekend, I got to go to 4 different panels. Now, part of this was just because I had a friend visiting with me at the time, and I took some time to spend with him to do things around the city. So I didn't get to go to all of the panels that I would have liked to have gone to. And I will say that Gaymer X had a really good app in place, so you could decide which you wanted to go to, and it would send you an email every morning with all of the different panels that you wanted to go to. Or there was like meetups as well, like a women's meetup and a trans and gender non-conforming meetup and, you know, stuff like that. But it would send you that schedule every morning, so you had the information of when it was, what the panel was about, and the room that you should go to. So it made it very, very easy to get around this convention or conference. I keep going in between the two. So the first panel I went to was called, I have my handy dandy notebook here to remind me. The first one I went to was how to get that panel like a pro without being one. This was a panel that was done by Pat Bear, Samus Music, Benjamin Red, and moderated by Tanya DePass. This was a panel, it was a meta panel, because it was a panel about paneling. But basically, it was these 4 people talking about how to best write your submissions, how to come up with ideas, how to get people to do panels with you at conventions. I personally haven't paneled at a convention in maybe like 3 or 4 years, but it's something that I want to get back into the swing of doing. When I go to conventions, it's always nice to be able to do things and talk to people and meet new people and bring up topics and conversations that I think are important within the realm of nerdery or whatever the conference is about. I can say that I definitely learned some good tactics during this, and the moderators were very entertaining and funny, so I was inspired to submit to more panels, which I think I will do in the future. The next one I went to was called F You Pay Me, I'm Not Dying of Exposure. Was a panel about knowing your value and worth within the community that you work in and getting paid for it. This one had a lot of similar overlap as the previous panel I had just gone to. This one was also moderated by Tanya DePass, and it also had Samus Music in it, but it all the other panelists were Manveer Air, Riley MacLeod, and Mars Dixon. Mars Dixon and Samus were both musicians, like nerdy musicians. Manveer is a game developer, and Riley writes for is the managing editor of Kotaku. So this was also a really interesting panel for me. I definitely was validated with the idea that it's good to be paid for what you do. As a person who does entertainment at conferences and conventions, this is definitely a thing that I struggle with, is getting people to understand the importance of what I do, and that it is something that I'm just not doing for exposure, but rather I'm doing this as a profession. So I did learn a lot from the panelists and the moderator who were talking about their experiences, both good and bad, with making sure that they were getting paid for the work that they do, which is really important, and I hope any of you out there watching understand that as well. You can take whatever gigs you want, but know your own self-worth. So that panel was very good for that. The third panel I went to, notebook, was called Nostalgia Formation of Personal Identity. Now this was a panel that I wasn't expecting to go to at first, but I met up with a friend who was there, and she was like, oh, my partner and I are gonna go to this one. Do you wanna come along? And it was a super cute panel. The panel had 4 different people on it. It was moderated by Francesca Carletto Leon, and it had panelists Nicolo Berrier K, Arden Ripley, and Emperatriz Ung. This was basically a panel where the 4 panels talked about how media growing up affected their identity and how they kind of live the world that they live in now. A lot of talk about, because this was a queer gaming convention, they did talk about anime, games, and a little bit on comics, but it was a lot of kind of the idea of like, oh, you know, as a queer woman, I would see these video game characters and I would be like, ugh, I hate how they make them look, but ugh, I'm attracted to them at the same time. Or some of like the gender non-conforming or trans moderators that were on it would talk a lot about how, like, in Ranma 1/2, the character switches between genders when they get hit with water, and about how that resonated with them deeply, even though at that point they didn't fully understand that they were trans themselves. It was also just kind of like a fun little walk back on a lot of nostalgia and the things that went into it. There was definitely some talk about like Sailor Moon and different video games that I hadn't really thought about in a long time, but it made me realize how those things influenced me as a queer woman, even before I was able to understand that I was queer myself. So it was just a really cool kind of panel to attend and sit with and, you know, have feelings with a bunch of other people in the audience as we react to graphics that came up on the screen. The last panel that I went to was the one that really made the convention for me. A panel called Women in Competitive Gaming. It was being run by Kara Klasinski and Blue Risu, Alyssa, but she goes by Blue Risu. Now, I'm nowhere near being a competitive gamer, but it was just really fascinating to sit and listen to these 2 women talk about their experiences and a lot of the sexism and misogyny that they face. Several years ago, I ran a panel at PAX called Game Like a Girl, and it really cemented in me a lot of the hatred that women in the nerdy gaming community get. And this panel by these 2 women kind of was a flashback of a lot of that. They talked about a lot of issues, just about how like women don't get sponsorships, women aren't taken seriously in competitive gaming, that whenever they go to competitive gaming events, they always get asked like who brought them there or where their boyfriend is and stuff like that. I was also able to ask them a lot of questions about streaming and Twitch and things like that, which are things that I'm looking to get into more and more. So it was just really nice to be able to talk to them. These were 2 femme-presenting women, and as a femme-presenting woman myself, I was just able to really connect with them. And after the panel, I ended up walking around with them for a little bit and asking questions and kind of just joking and talking, and it was really great and super nice. That really kind of made the convention for me, was being able to connect to these 2 women who face a lot of the same things that I face as a female gamer in the gaming community. That was it for the panels I attended. There was definitely a lot more panels that I wanted to go to, and unfortunately I just couldn't work it with what was going on with my life at the time. But I'll be really excited to try to go to one of these GaymerX conferences again and maybe submit a panel of my own this time. So that's gonna be it on my review of going to GaymerX East. Takeaways, great conference, good sense of kind of connections with others, interesting panels, really cool indie arcade, marketplace, which I wish was bigger, and just generally a really cool experience. If you are a queer or an ally to the queer community and one of these conventions comes up in your area, I would definitely suggest checking it out. It wasn't that expensive for a 2-day conference. Go to their website, which I will also link below, and I will put like right here on the screen. Ooh. And check it out. They're also super quick on Twitter. When you would tweet, they would retweet. It was really nice, and I felt very seen in a good way. But that's gonna be it. I hope you enjoyed this talk. I know one of the things that people had asked is that they said they wanted to hear me talk about more nerdy stuff, so this was definitely, I don't know, I went to a video game conference and game design conference, so I don't know, I think it's pretty nerdy. I hope you enjoyed this. Of course, like it if you liked it, comment below, all that stuff. All the YouTube razzmatazz stuff, do it down there. Bells, things, subscribe, so you know when I'm doing more stuff. I have a few more videos in mind right now that I want to do, but if there's something you would like to see me do, definitely let me know. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, which is going to be on the panel at the end of this. So find me and let me know what you'd like to see. I do these videos because they're fun for me, and I want to do something that you all want to watch. Otherwise, I'm making videos in my apartment that nobody sees, spending hours editing them, and finding cute graphics. So let me know what you want to see. And that's gonna be it for me, so thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time I see you. Bye!